ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank on behalf of Government of Pakistan, for inviting me again to attend the International Security Conference and affording me the opportunity to share our perspective on the issue of global security, challenges, and prospects. The impact and outreach of the issues besetting our world today are localized, regional, as well as trans-regional. Since last May's edition of conference in Moscow, the world has witnessed emergence of new phenomena which have disturbed the peace and stability of various regions, with reverberations being felt across the globe. The world seems to be grappling with a plethora of problems which have different dimensions in their own settings. But if we look closely at all these issues, their genesis lie in the same factors, be it economic, social, religious, energy, or strategic. The body politic of world has not been able to foresee and forestall the impending crisis. The phenomenal rise of radicals under the banner of Islamic State has injected destabilization in a trans-regional setting. It has raised questions regarding efficacy of the post-World War borders and fears of a fragmentation of the existing state system in the region. 3-4 states have already lost their definition or their meanings in the classical sense: Syria, Iraq, Libya, and now Yemen. Drivers of this change relate to Islamist ideological motivation and militant action in the backdrop of mounting apprehensions of unfolding of greater religious strife and fomenting of terrorism. The phenomenon is an index of persisting disarray in the Middle Eastern region. It is viewed as a tertiary effect of instability in Iraq, an offshoot of Arab Spring, failed attempt for regime change in Syria, and sectarian dimensions of the ensuing conflict in both countries and broader region. The crisis arises where the old order is dying and there is no new order to replace that. This is exactly what is happening in the Middle East. The old order is dying. The people over there or the powers from without, they are preventing the new order to take over. And that is what is the crisis in the region. The damage unfolded in the process is not likely to be repaired soon. Whether IS will persist long enough in Iraq depends largely on the present political dispensation in Iraq. Depends largely on the present political dispensation in Iraq, which needs to ensure incorporation of dissident Sunni tribes and Kurds, as well as substantially sharing power and shoring up Iraqi army, then marginalization IS in Iraq is likely. However, the persistence of IS in Syria will accrue from Syrian government's ability or failure to pursue similar policy, and its acceptability to major powers' failure to do so will have ominous consequences for the region. We know that IS harbors the desire of extending the boundaries of its self-proclaimed caliphate to Europe, and the readiness of elements from within the European society to join it is enough for all to understand complexity and magnitude of this threat. Recently, IS has also been making ingress into regions of Southeast Asia, Africa, and it is evident that extremist elements and organizations which have been historically operating in these regions have now started losing their foot soldiers to the more organized and well-funded IS having global designs. It is happening in our region also. Taliban are losing their foot soldiers to IS, to Daesh, strengthening their ranks elsewhere, starting from Afghanistan, Pakistan to the Middle East. While we support the effort of international community in its fight against IS in Syria and Iraq, we also feel that military action needs to be followed up by a comprehensive social, economic, political reform package in the region, which should be in line with the cultural traditions and aspirations of the populace of regional countries. We in Pakistan, since last June, after combating terrorism in different forms, in different manners, are actually combating head-on the terrorism in Pakistan, in our border region with Afghanistan. 200,000 soldiers of Pakistan Army are combating terrorism now. We have achieved successes in last 8-9 months, and we resolved to eradicate terrorism from Pakistan. But as I said, it has to be followed up by a comprehensive plan for educational empowerment, economic empowerment, cultural empowerment, and social empowerment of the people from where this radicalization started way back in 1980 when there was intervention or the war which was staged in Afghanistan in the decade of 80s. This would not only address the basic concerns of the people of the region, but would also deny space to elements who take advantage of the fault lines existing in their respective societies. And the fault lines in our society, in society in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and elsewhere in the Middle East, these fault lines have been accentuated in the last 1 year. And they have been accentuated to the level that it's frightening, and the world has to take care of it. Excellency, Pakistan welcomes the recent breakthrough in diplomatic relationship between Iran and West and is encouraged to see the willingness expressed from both sides to seek an amicable resolution to nuclear issue, which will enable the regional countries to further close their ranks in their fight against Daesh. We would like to see all the regional countries put up a joint front against the present wave of extremism and terrorism being unleashed in our region. A comprehensive and joint strategy by all the regional countries would not only be beneficial from the strategic security point of view, but would also allay the fears and apprehensions regarding economic security of the region, which is one of the important strategic trade sea routes. Our priorities should focus on the extent of threat that precipitates extremism, sectarianism, and gives fresh impetus to some tendencies in other parts of the world. In order to achieve this, the primary responsibility of the developed societies is to ensure that the sanctity and the respect of the religious beliefs of their Muslim communities are respected, and actions which hurt the sentiments of Muslims be avoided, even if that entails in compromising on some of the ideals held dear by these societies. The recent events in France and other parts of Europe have exposed the fault lines that exist within the modern-day societies with regard to religious sentiments and the advantage that can be taken by extremist elements within these societies and beyond. The extremist forces react beyond the measured responses, and we see their uncivilized and brutal acts manifesting in kidnapping of schoolgirls in Nigeria by Boko Haram and to cowardly act of killing innocent school children in Peshawar in Pakistan. These extremist elements find support by exploiting the fault lines existing in our societies. So there is a dire need to develop a counter-narrative based on the cardinal principles of religious harmony, economic equality, and an all-encompassing respect-based system to ensure that extremist elements are denied the space. It is the responsibility of the world body politic to urgently address some of the long-standing conflicts of the Islamic world. From Palestine to Kashmir, we have a history of suppression and denial of basic human rights, which gives way to extremist tendencies in different parts of the world. Excellency, in South Asia, there is a complex paradigm developing with the withdrawal of US-led NATO ISAF forces. The region, which can be regarded as the hub of future economic activity, is witnessing a difficult situation which involves not only the regional players, but also trans-regional entities who often have conflicting interests, adding to the complexity of the problem. Pakistan realizes the importance of peace and stability in Afghanistan, and we have not only been hosting over 3 million Afghan refugees for more than 3 decades, resulting in numerous social, economic, and security problems, but also are the country worst hit by terrorism, extremism for more than a decade, which has deeply impacted our society. The world needs to treat every single component of threat emanating from Afghanistan or Pakistan by preparing a holistic policy framework to counter narcotics, arms proliferation, human trafficking, and refugee issues. Pakistan has and will continue to fight against the forces of terrorism and extremism to protect inalienable human rights, civil liberties, democratic values of people. We as a nation have paid a very heavy price, both in men and material, to jealously safeguard our cherished dreams and will leave no stone unturned in achieving the desired activities. Under the present fragile political, security, economic, and social environment, it is imperative the world community at large and regional countries in particular do not interfere in the internal political and security dynamics of each other and should instead stay focused in bringing social sector reforms to address the basic needs of their populace. In the same context, future of Ukraine should be decided by its people, acceptable to all nationalities of the country. We call for cessation of hostilities, disarmament of various groups, and return to peace and sanctity to the country. All parties should abide by Minsk Agreement in letter and spirit. The recent positive outreach witnessed between various tiers of leadership of Pakistan and Afghanistan is indeed a welcome development and can act as a catalyst for more comprehensive and sustainable bilateral future cooperation between the two neighbors. There is a need for the countries of the region to play a proactive role in resolving their regional disputes and addressing the problems through a regional-based cohesive approach. South Asia as a region is of vital importance for stability of the world, as we have enormously high stake with conflicting and entrenched interests. In order to avoid and mitigate the fears of intensified arms race in the region, there is a need for both India and Pakistan to follow the composite dialogue process. Both sides need to realize that continuous volatility across the line of control and working boundary will further complicate the situation on the ground, which naturally builds domestic pressures, which add to the growing concerns about the region. Pakistan and India cannot develop mutual cordiality overnight, but they need to jointly acknowledge that in 21st century, they must collectively work towards peace and stability. Excellencies, in the end, please allow me to once again thank General Sergei Shoigu, Defense Minister of Russian Federation, and organizers of international conference, with the hope that such interaction will help the world community in evolving joint strategy to overcome common threat and security problems. And I hope, or we hope and pray, that next time when we meet in Moscow, the world is better than what it is today. Thank you very much.